Hi, go planet! By your powers combined, I am Captain Planet.
Captain Planet, he's a hero.
It's going to take pollution down to zero. We knew that you were a secret fan of Captain Planet, so actually Will and I planned a surprise for you. So I know you're probably not expecting this. So Will, if you want to go first. Welcome to the stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation with guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarney, a water strategy consultant doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And today you're going to hear all about water footprinting. You're going to hear about an interesting origin story dating back to Romania. You're also going to hear about Captain Planet and lots of other interesting elements. So without further ado, let's bring you in. Ioana Dobrescu, the project manager for the water footprint implementation. Ioana, good to see you. How are you?
Hi, Tom. Hi, Will. Good to see you as well. I'm good. As good as you can be in these times.
Exactly. Well, thank you for joining us. It's great to connect. I think the last time I saw you was when we were traveling, right, in Shanghai for one of the Aquatech shows, Aquatech China. So seems anything pre-COVID seems a distant world away now. But we're delighted to have you on the stream. So let's, because we really want to get into a discussion on water footprinting, but let's perhaps take a little look at your origin story then, in terms of how you studied in Romania and made your way to Netherlands and some of the work you're doing. So tell us where perhaps your spark for water quality came from.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as you've already mentioned, I grew up in Romania and I did my bachelor's at a university that had just started its environmental sciences faculty. So I was the second generation to study environmental sciences in that part of Romania. Already from my bachelor's time, I decided to do my thesis on water quality on a river, lake, well system in the village of my grandparents. So growing up, I had this mix of living in in one of these communist, gray, concrete, brutalist architecture cities,
Right.
And then spending my summers at my grandparents' village, just surrounded by nature, and every day going to the river in the village and sunbathing and enjoying the water there. So when I grew up and I did my studies, I wanted to go back and see what the actual water quality of that river, what the water quality was, and also what the water quality of the drinking water in the village is. Because, well, even though we're part of Europe, a lot of the places now in Romania, the rural localities in Romania, still lack supply of drinking water. And a lot of people there rely on public drinking wells for their water supply. And also wanted to see, what's the actual water quality of the drinking water I had been using. And from that study, I ended up in the Netherlands to pursue my master's. And here I also did further research on water quality and more from the ecological perspective of water quality.
So in terms of your findings then on water quality, and your summer vacations with the grandparents sounds wonderful, by the way. Did you see anything that you're like, holy shit, this, anything that alarming that then you thought, this needs solving? Tell us what you found out.
Now, luckily, there was nothing alarming in the results. I also looked mostly at invertebrates as indicators of ecological water quality. So we didn't go into chemical parameters,
right?
But also the river that flows through the village is really close to its source, and you don't have many polluting industries across or along its course. So in that sense, we're lucky. We don't see real organic pollution. But I do see more and more today. When I go back, I see a lot of plastic pollution on the same river. So now when you have a flood, for example, caused just by the natural rain cycle, You do see a lot of, plastic bottles and a lot of solid waste being carried with the water, which didn't happen, I don't know, 15 years ago.
Now, on the subject of waste and solid waste, you, from when we last spoke, actually had a secret childhood superpower, right? So I think you really need to tell everyone about that. What was your superpower, and why were you inspired to have a superpower?
It feels weird to say this on record, and this will go on YouTube, and people will be able to go there and see it.
Wait, view it as, you're inspiring a whole new generation.
I've only mentioned this once in writing, actually, after I finished my master's, and Wageningen University also asked for my alumni story. My superpower was to make trash disappear when I was a kid. So I remember going around in my parents' car in the back seat, and whenever I would see like piles of trash on the side road, I would always imagine making that trash disappear. And that comes, I believe, from watching Captain Planet when I was a kid. Captain Planet, he's a hero.
It's going to take pollution down to zero, right? So probably one of the best opening soundtracks to a kid's cartoon.
It was, and actually until recently, I didn't think of checking what happened with Captain Planet, or I had this vague memory of being a kid and watching it, but I didn't really remember the imagery and the lines that they were using. And now, recently going back to it, I realized I'm turning more and more into the character who had the water power.
Nice. So you don't think Captain Planet gave up on us, do you?
No, not at all.
Okay, good. I mean, we wouldn't want him to just say, well, forget it, the Earth is hopeless. And
no, he's just waiting, I think, for the next generation of Planeteers to take up their rings and their powers.
So we agree with you about that in terms of not just the new generation, but perhaps older generations getting hooked on Captain Planet and having superpowers. Right, Tom?
Indeed. And we knew that you were a secret fan of Captain Planet. So actually, Will and I planned a surprise for you. So I know you're probably not expecting this. So Will, if you want to go first. Hang on, I don't think you can see it on the camera. And the microphones, the things come out.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous. I am so jealous.
Okay, so you will get Captain Planet paraphernalia.
I'm so jealous. All I could do is have this purple pullover, because Gaia was always wearing purple, but I thought, having one of those bare shoulder dress in winter, it's not really gonna work.
It's not practical, right?
I'll go for something purple. But you guys?
So Tom, what is your Captain Planet superpower?
That's a good one. I mean, obviously, I think everybody wants to be Captain Planet because he was all the powers combined, right? There was Earth, wind, fire, and water, and love. Don't forget the dude with the ring who gave the power of love, right? Which could be called the most powerful power of all. But I think if I had to choose water, I mean, we're war people, right? So imagine having the ability to eradicate water scarcity at a flick of a finger. That's pretty powerful power to have. What about you, Will? Which one would you have if you could choose?
No, I'd probably go with eradicating drought. First of all, I hate the word. It's, wildly misleading. So, yeah, the ability to, we talked about this, create abundance, eliminate drought, which goes, well with the other side of the coin, quality.
Right, absolutely. What about you, Ioana? You mentioned about being Gaia and handing out the powers, but if you had to choose, which one would you have?
I'm very happy you asked, and I'm very happy you mentioned, the other power, the guy who had love.
It's not, no, it's earth, wind, fire, water, love.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And it was actually called heart. He had the power of heart.
Okay.
And we all remember it like that. Like we remember all these cool powers of wind, fire, earth, water. And then, that other guy is like, that's not even a power. Heart is not even a power. And then again, when I just revisited the whole storyline, it's clearly stated that he was the leader of the group.
Right.
Because without heart, none of these powers actually can be put to use. And I realized, they were giving some really strong messages behind the cartoon. And I think that's still very valid today. And I think that was a discussion that I had with some people as well, that today it's not the technologies that we lack, the actual
Right.
superpowers. I mean, if you think, in terms of soil, water technologies,
Right.
we have a lot of very advanced technologies. What we lack is the heart to put these technologies to good use and to distribute them equally. And I think, Will, you have this really cool quote at the end of your emails that I really like, from the Romancer. It's like the future is already here, but it's not equally distributed yet. And I think what we lack for the equal distribution is just the heart power.
Right. So, well, thank you. I wish that was my quote, but I borrow with reckless abandon. And this is a really, I think, important issue in the world of water, which is, how do we reboot Captain Planet and communicate better in terms of, what are the issues? Why are they important? Mobilize people. The climate movement has done a good, if not excellent job in terms of increasing awareness. Yet the water sector seems to struggle with it. It's almost like, I hate to say it, but we're maybe a little too geeky in terms of talking about very specific issues and not getting to maybe that love message, something very simple, clear, that resonates with people. And
do you think, I think it's well said, but from my memory as a kid of Captain Planet, and bearing in mind this was from the early 90s, right? So, but it brought together people from around the world. I mean, it's a cartoon, like you say, but I think it has a deeper message because it brings together different teenagers from around the world for the greater good. And that was fighting environmental pollution. So I think, and really nice quote, Ioana, on perhaps the love part is missing, and we perhaps have the solutions, but implementing them and bringing people together, different stakeholders together, is something that we just struggle with. So maybe the heart superpower needs to be given more. Maybe Captain Planet should come back as a cartoon series, and instead of, like you say, it's like earth, wind, fire, water, heart. Actually, he's the main dude. That's the main superpower.
So, I mean, could we just declare that Captain Planet gets a reboot on the stream with Ioana? I mean, like,
You have
why
my
not?
vote. I'm in, all in.
All right.
If we send this podcast to the right places in Hollywood, or I don't know, wherever it needs to go, we might get our wish.
Wouldn't that be an amazing thing? We always talk about what conversations can we have and who's listening to catalyze change. Imagine if this eventually led to the reboot of Captain Planet for the modern day age. How fantastic would that be?
I love it. Then, with a little bit of luck, we can get Captain Planet on the show.
That's the end game. Wouldn't that be amazing? But surely, I mean, the superheroes of past have kind of been given a bit of a facelift. So you think in the red lycra and the blue bodysuit, I think he'll be not modernized in terms of his ambitions, but maybe in terms of his look and outfit. But okay, well, glad to see the merch. I would say me and Will went shopping, but obviously in a lockdown, shopping involves scrolling. But glad we could make that happen. So where were we on the story? You got to Wageningen University for your master's, right? So then let's kind of, how did you get involved in terms of water footprinting, and then now on the implementation side? Tell us your journey from quality to Netherlands to water footprinting.
Yeah. Well, I think in a way it still kind of relates to the Captain Planet story. Because after graduating here in the Netherlands, I did a lot of work between Romania and the Netherlands on water. And I only got into water footprinting and working with the water footprint implementation organization just a couple of years ago. But the way I got to work with them was through a common contact from the Wet Skills Foundation.
Okay.
And the Wet Skills Foundation I just realized, also does a bit what, Captain Planet and the concept of Captain Planet was doing. It's bringing together young people from all over the world to work on solutions for real life water challenges. And I had been working with Wet Skills for a couple of years before I also joined the Water Footprint company, who has a common director. So yeah, I digressed a bit. Now it's.
But the Wet Skills. I mean, let's touch on that a little bit then, because I think that's where we first met at an event where you were there for Wet Skills, and from seeing the collaboration and that kind of like the hackathons and that really kind of that energy from some of the events and gatherings I've seen when the Wet Skills have got together. Obviously, we've shifted to a much more remote and virtual kind of event and collaborative landscape. So how has that been affected for 2020 for Wet Skills?
Well, Wet Skills was, to be honest, quite a bit affected because all the programs that we do take place in different countries across the world, and there's a very large social and cultural component to the programs that we organize. So we bring together mostly Dutch students and young professionals because the foundation is based in the Netherlands. Right. But we go to different countries across the world, and we try to bring in also international participants from other countries. And then we put them to work, basically mixed teams on cases that are being brought by different water organizations. But we also do team building activities. We go on the field in those specific countries to visit different water projects. Right. And we also have fun, of course. We go for team dinners in the evening.
Karaoke, I saw the video. team karaoke, bringing people from around the world. I mean, what better way to bond, unite, and collaborate and innovate, right?
Yeah, and when we met Tommy in China, like karaoke was really a big component of that.
That's huge, yeah.
You two are not going to break out into any song or anything.
No, we'll leave that to the guests from season 1, Yang Villa. Why? Nobody wants to hear my voice. But I think it's a good point, because you're bringing together different cultures, different stakeholders to kind of a single location to work together. So, I mean, presumably these meetings, everything have gone on virtually to still implement people, but when we've last spoken, you said even you have to bear in mind kind of connection issues in some locations, and that's perhaps been a bit of a challenge for you as well.
Yeah, yes, it definitely has. So we have carried on, and we have organized a few online events. But as you just said, there's problems with connection, with just commitment, because when you are together as a group, you really create a different type of bond than you can create through an online medium. Right. And I think switching to online calls is perfect when you want to replace a 1-hour meeting. I mean, before COVID times, you had business people flying from Amsterdam to London for a 1-hour meeting and then back. And I think those can definitely be replaced with a Zoom call. And again, in the case where people already know each other, it's good to keep the contact, and it's easy to switch to having Zoom calls. But in the case when you're bringing, about 20 people that are just meeting each other, and you have 2 weeks to create this feeling of togetherness and dedication to work on these problems, just switching it entirely to an online medium is not working, at least it's not working as well as it should. So we are looking forward to going back to live events when that's possible.
Yeah, echo those comments. Will, would you agree in terms of online as a medium? I think for existing relationships, it's perfectly fine. It will reduce, like Ioana said, a lot of unnecessary travel. But for new connections, nothing beats being there in person, right?
Yeah, I think everyone benefits enormously from face-to-face time, and even karaoke, certainly.
But even if they're out of tune, right? Yeah.
It's not going to go back to the way it was, and I like your comment about you fly wherever for a 1-hour meeting. It's now best handled virtually. Yeah, I think what we're beginning to see is more hybrid events. Stockholm World Water Week this year is going to be virtual, but in 2022, it's going to be a hybrid. So some combination of, being in Stockholm and having quality time with, friends, colleagues, and people you haven't met, coupled with really being able to connect with people globally without having to fly around. And a lot of the, water community can't afford to fly around.
Right.
So I think we're going to wind up in a better place.
Yeah, agree. Okay, that. So, Ioana, let's. You talked a bit about wet skills, then, in terms of your day-to-day role, you could say, with the hat on, with the water footprint implementation. Talk us through some of the projects you're working on, and how you perhaps see the perception of water footprint implementation changing. And then, Will, I know you've written a few pieces on switching to a handprint model, which would be really interesting to maybe bring that into the conversation as well. So.
Sure.
So Ioana, yeah, maybe talk to us about your role there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, maybe it's good to give a bit of history on the water footprint, not the concept itself, but the different organizations. Because people, I think, are more familiar with the Water Footprint Network, which was established by Arjen Hoekstra, the creator of the concept, and that's been existing, for more than a decade. And it's an organization that reunites a lot of international members, research institutes, and also commercial companies that are working with the water footprint concept. And about 3 years ago, they decided to split a bit activities, and they also created the water footprint implementation. That is now the organization that's putting the water footprint concept into practice. So whenever there's a request for a more practical application of the concept, then we're the guys to take care of that. And well, in these last couple of years that I've been with the water footprint, we've been involved in quite a different range of projects. So from really small scale applications, like working with small businesses that want to find out their water footprint, so going really down in their supply chain and calculating the water footprint of each of the processes within their supply chain, and coming up with not just the number, but also with suggestions for how they can either reduce the water footprint or improve the way that water is being used in their activities. From that type of really detailed research up to calculating the national water footprints of entire nations and looking at the virtual water flows between those nations and the rest of the world. So this is a project that we've been working recently, for example, on Central Asia, where we looked at the national water footprint of consumption, of production, and at the virtual water trades between the region and the rest of the world. We've also worked with different sectors, so from textile, for example, to very excitingly the financial sector. We see more and more that banks and financial institutions are recognizing that water is also a risk for them, and they're looking more and more into having a measure of that risk within their portfolios, and then eventually also hopefully taking measures for reducing that risk. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. I don't know if you want to focus on something more specifically. I mean, you were saying, Will, the difference between the water footprint and the handprint.
Right. So, I think there's a lot of value in water footprinting, in particular, doing it or looking at footprinting on a national or regional basis, which really goes back to Tony Allen's original piece of work or, body of work. I guess the one thing that I struggle with is that from the corporate side, they've been very focused on footprint and replenish and net positive, and historically have not paid attention to, handprint, and that was borrowed from some of the work done by the information communication technology sector, where, they recognize that digital technologies certainly have a water footprint, but the applications of digital technologies far outweigh whatever footprint they might have. So, my view is that there's a lot of value in the footprint, but that's only part of what a company should be looking at. They really should be looking at, okay, so I'm Microsoft or Intel, and I can deliver things well beyond my footprint, and that should be factored into my corporate water strategy, well beyond a water balance calculation. So, it's not one or the other. For me, it's really both, and having a broader view of the role of the private sector in solving water problems. How much work is being done on the national level, and where do you see that going? I mean, I see that as incredibly powerful in terms of making public policy decisions on the role of the ag sector, growing the right crops on a national basis, and supporting certain industry sectors and so on.
Well, I'm glad you asked.
And this is totally unscripted, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's when magic happens in conversation. So I'm glad you asked, because there was at one point a study done and calculations done on the national water footprints of all the nations, but those haven't been updated, and we are now looking at having a model through which we can update these national water footprints yearly. And of course, what this update can inform, of course, it's valuable in many ways, and you can inform different policy decisions at the government level. But one of the really useful applications that the national water footprint can have is also informing water savings in terms of smart virtual water trade. So besides the water footprint concept itself, we also have the concept of virtual water trade, and that's referring to the water that's embedded in the products that we import or we export.
Right.
So we have a virtual water import and we have a virtual water export. And looking at the national water footprints of consumption and production, and actually knowing how much water I as a country or as a government am using for producing a specific crop, then I can inform myself and also tweak my trade in such a way that I'm not exporting products that are taking a lot of water in my country to produce, and especially if I'm a water scarce country, and try to import these products that would take a lot of water to produce in my own country. And export those, of course, with a lower water footprint. So it's sort of using a national water footprint advantage that's dictated, of course, by the natural conditions regarding precipitation and just natural water availability.
And which country, excuse me, which country or countries do you think do that well in terms of really understanding their national footprint and using that to inform public policy? Or is this like a brave new opportunity out there?
It's still a brave new opportunity. I mean, initial research has been done. Some countries have been more receptive than others, for sure. For example, here in the country of its birth, of the water footprint concept birth, they haven't been very, keen to take it up, because the Netherlands is traditionally a country that had to deal with too much water, and the water footprint concept is associated with water scarcity. So they haven't really been looking at implementing, policies informed by the water footprint concept. But looking at the recent years and the fact that we have more and more, problems with drought, I think that will change. And what I know, for example, is that Spain is so far the only country that has taken the water footprint concept, I think in their river basin management plans. They have introduced that. But further than that, it's still a brave new world.
So you think it's
Okay.
only until it's too late? You think that, I guess, the water footprinting on a national level can be used to proactively, as Will mentioned, improve public and policy and shape public policy, as well as looking at what's imported, exported. But often it's only until the well runs dry that people probably think about it, right?
Hopefully, because of the different situations in the countries across the world, not every country will get to that point where
Right.
the well runs dry, that they will take the water footprint into consideration, but rather that it will be a joint transition spurred by those countries who now already have to deal with really tough water scarcity problems.
So finally, Ioana, let's talk about, because I think we started your story about water quality, and then some other work you're doing with the UNEP, the World Water Quality Alliance. So run us through kind of the organization, where it sits, because I think that's a really interesting, we talked about, again, how it always linked back to Captain Planet, but bringing together these different individuals, and the Alliance is doing just that, right?
Yeah, correct. So that also ties into my work that I do with the wet skills and the youth. And well, the World Water Quality Alliance actually was established just at the end of 2019. So it's not something that's already very known out there. And it started with an initial group of about 50 members, mostly research institutes, but also companies like Google, for example. And they have convened under the umbrella of the United Nations Environmental Program. And I got involved with one of their workflows with the social engagement platform this year as a coordinator for youth engagement in the social engagement platform. And what the World Water Quality Alliance plans to do, in very concrete terms, in the coming period is to create a baseline assessment of fresh water quality worldwide. And of course, based on this to inform, again, and support national efforts on the Sustainability Agenda 2030. So we are still sort of in the beginning phases. There are some ongoing activities and workflows. And actually, at the beginning of this year, these activities will be expanded with new workflows. Maybe I'm letting, the, how do you say it? I'm letting the cat out of the hat too soon? Is that
Cat out of the bag.
Almost cat out the bag, yeah.
I-
But this is a new version I think we should definitely adopt moving forward, the cat out the hat.
Or cat out of the Captain Planet hat. How's that?
It's just brilliant. Okay, so you haven't let the cat out of the Captain Planet hat too early, so continue.
But together with the European Youth Parliament for Water, we have proposed a new work stream for youth engagement and youth activities under the World Water Quality Alliance. So we'll see if that comes to happen. But I'm very excited about what could be achieved in terms of convening the different youth organizations active in the water sector worldwide. And you've got, for example, the Water Youth Network, the Young International Water Association chapters, and a lot of other youth organizations, local or regional youth organizations worldwide. And what we would like to see is that these youth organizations come together and make use of this high potential that students and early career professionals have to drive change and to come up with new narratives for valuing water, to come up with a theory of change that helps the even younger generations to see water and to value water in a different way, so that when they get to choose which high school or which university they're going to go to, they're going to choose for for a water study, for a water profession. And I would also like to see this cascading effect of working with students and young leaders, but that they design programs and activities also for the younger generations than themselves, for school children, because that's where impact really starts, with the really young ages. And also work with the current senior decision makers, to sit at the same table and jointly participate in decision making on water quality issues. And especially if this baseline quality assessment will take place, that the young professionals of today already have access to this latest knowledge, to the latest tools in water quality monitoring, so that they are already prepared and informed when they also transition towards being more senior decision makers.
Right.
So I see a lot of potential here in working with different stages of youth and having a sort of cascading effect on decision making.
I think in terms of empowering different clusters of young water professionals and bringing them together, and then if that's going to fast track the access to data on water quality at a worldwide scale, that's should be applauded, and you should definitely let the cat out of the hat on that, because if Google's involved, if you've got the big tech as well to kind of really get behind it at a global level, I think yeah, we should definitely touch base on that after the podcast. I think there's a good story there.
Now that it's going to be out there.
Yeah, it's the cat is officially out, as you would say.
There we go. We've got so many action items out of this conversation. It's great.
Okay, well, Ioana, thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate it. I think we've covered quite a lot. Will, any final kind of wrap up remarks from you?
I'm now a Captain Planet fan. And yeah, I think we should run with that one. I mean, everything else, of course, but Captain Planet, engaging people, desperately needed. So thanks.
I think hashtag Operation Bring Back Captain Planet. We should try and make that viral, right? But great stuff. Ioana, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Great to hear about your work on footprinting and the kind of the origin story back to Romania, as well as the latest developments on water quality. So to everyone listening, thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content on the stream. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me, Tom and Will. And don't forget, the power is yours.
Love it.
Amazing. Thank you.
Be well.